Hey folks, Dr. Brian King here, once again in Dallas, Texas, on the road, technically, kind of on the road.
I'm definitely not anymore.
Yeah, she's not on the road anymore.
Not today, anyway.
Which is why you haven't been in the last couple of podcasts, because we've kind of had this weird settling year where
Is it weird?
It's weird for us.
Life circle.
It's weird for us, but we're here in Dallas, and technically not on the road, but our guest today is on the road.
Definitely.
So I guess that counts, and we can still call it On the Road with Dr. Brian. You want to bring us in and introduce our guest?
I do. We are here today with somebody who I greatly admire and respect, fellow nude model, Kristy Jessica. Yay!
How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and blues. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm an asshole, I'm rude.
Kristy is someone who I think we're both fans of, right?
Right, yes.
I think we agree on that. But
It's nice to have a fan or a change.
Or to be a fan.
For
Right.
a change.
Are you feeling starstruck? You're like a
No offense. No.
None taken.
It's how did we become fans of Kristy? Because you found her first, right?
I think Instagram. I'm not sure, but I think Instagram. But it could have been any number of modeling pages because we're both on several things and worlds collide. We're in the same world. But no, Kristy is fantastic. She does beautiful nude modeling and others. She's very funny. If you've never followed her, she does a lot of spoofs about funny things that photographers do. She'll share about her personal background story and so forth. Yeah.
And so that was the thing that drew me in, right? Sarah, she's like, hey, you should check out this model. She posts these really funny videos. And me being a lover of things funny, I was like hooked. I mean, this is fantastic. See, how long have you been modeling?
18 years.
Wow. That's,
Right now it's half of my life.
How'd you get into it?
My first shoot ever was a photographer who found me on MySpace.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, MySpace. I had been posting cute photos of myself in my sexy pajamas that I've been taking with my digital point-and-shoot camera. I would set on a timer and then pose for it across the room and put them on my MySpace profile. And some photographer was like, oh, I like your photos. Do you want to do a real photo shoot with a real photographer? And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not tall enough and I have these like stretch marks. And he was like, well, we'll see if you make the cut when you get here.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So
what a mixed message. Like, do you want to?
Yeah.
But let's see if you make the cut.
Yeah, that guy turned out to be a douchebag.
Sounds like it, yeah.
But, I mean, that's what happens when you meet people on the internet and don't filter them.
Right,
but I didn't know,
Did you make the cut? Douchebag aside, did you make the cut?
I mean, I suppose. I got there, and it was kind of weird. So he was asking me to brush my hair, like, over and over again. He's like, oh, there's something wrong with your hair. And he's over-explaining, like, how his camera gear works. He's like, oh, I have these amazing lights. They're made to make you look good. And this camera with my settings that I'm a professional at using, I can really make you look good. And I was like, aren't I here because I look good? Like, Anyway, so before the shoot, when he organized it with me, he was like, well, I'll pay you $50 for a bikini and lingerie shoot or $100 for a nude shoot. And I was like, I'm not really into this yet. Maybe I'll just start off with bikini and lingerie, and then if I'm comfortable, eventually I'll move into nude. So that was our pre-communication. I'd already stated what my comfortability was. Yeah. And as he's directing me in my posing and stuff, he's telling me, do this, do that. Now slowly start turning in a circle while you're removing your top. So he's directing me into removing my top, and I was confused because I said, like, I thought we weren't doing a nude shoot. Like, didn't we already talk about this? And then he got all, like, sassy. He was like, look here, Missy. These photos have to be competitive with everything else on the internet. If we're not going to photograph nudes, then we're wasting our time here. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a people pleaser, and I was raised in a really strict environment, like where men are the ones that are the controlling ones. So I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. So I got nude, and then he's all complimentary, saying like, wow, you're such a natural. You look so much better without your clothes on. Like, I think that you're ready for an erotic shoot. And I was
like, talk about jumping.
Yeah. I was like, what's erotic mean, right? I just turned 18, right? Like, what is that? And like, I didn't even know. I was raised Christian, so I was like really sheltered. And he was like, let me show you.
Wow.
So he pulls up his laptop and starts showing me videos of chicks sucking his dick. Can I talk about this on your podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, is this censored?
Yeah.
No.
And I was like, I had never like actually intentionally watched a video like that before. I think I accidentally popped into it when I was doing research for like school projects, and I was like, oh, I can't watch that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't think that I want to do that. He's like, these models are making $10,000 a month, and so you have to do this. Like, that's why you're here. And I'm like, I might have done that with my boyfriend before, but I'm not going to do that with you. And then he freaked out, and he was like, well, I need you to sign an NDA, and you can never tell anybody about this photo shoot, and I want an extra photo of your ID, and I'm going to make you sign this 2257, and basically made me sign all this stuff and like photograph all my ID, and then he ran me off the property, and I was all freaked out. So that was my first shoot.
Wow.
And you stuck with it. that sounds like the worst experience.
For sure, 18 years.
Yeah.
No, that sounds literally like the worst experience
it's amazing
like,
you kept with it.
Creep, not upfront with his intentions, trying to get you to not only pose for porn, but even perform something on him. It sounds like,
Yes.
And did he pay you?
Oh, I don't recall if he paid me, honestly. I know that we agreed to the 50, but I don't remember being paid. But it was so long ago. I think that the money part kind of escapes my memory.
I feel like the end of that story with you. But I feel like that's the thing, though. It's like she's offended, she's mad, and she's like, I'm just going to get the hell out of here. And so, like, that I could see that happening. It was, I forgot to get my money, But
I don't even remember. Honestly, nobody's asked me that before.
See, this is the hard questions. We ask the hard questions here. On the Road with Dr. Brian podcast. But so I can only imagine that is an absolutely horrendous experience to have to go through, not only as a model but just as a human being. How did you decide, hey, you know what, I'm gonna stick with this for the next 18 years?
Well, I mean, it wasn't my plan to start out with. I wasn't sure what I was going to do for a career. I dropped out of high school. As soon as I turned 18, I was like, fuck high school. I'm not going to go back. Can I cuss, by the way?
You already have. You just talked about a guy getting his dick sucked.
All right. So I enjoyed being beautiful because I wasn't allowed to express myself in a way that was feminine, because that was always sort of shunned in my upbringing. I was raised in church and stuff, so being feminine or sensual, heaven forbid, was a sin. So I wanted to pursue modeling, but after that proceed with caution. I started finding people on Craigslist. I say I was with caution, but I went on Craigslist. But
it was very common.
And we are talking about an era before
2006.
A lot of other stuff opened up.
So from that point forward, I decided I'm just going to work with people and not shoot nudes. And if I am comfortable with them, maybe the second shoot could be a nude shoot. And the first time that happened, I did a nice Fashion in the Park shoot with a photographer who was really nice, and I enjoyed working with him, and we took some really nice pictures. He was this old guy, and he, at the end of the shoot, showed me this printed portfolio where he had images of like nude models like posing with a rose or like, against the window, and it was very pretty, like high-key lighting, like beautiful images. And he was like, if you ever want, I'll pay you $125 an hour if you want to make photos like this with me. And at first I was like, thanks, but no thanks. But I thought about it for a few months, and I was like, I do want to pose nude because that particular guy was nice. Maybe not every photographer is going to ask me to suck his dick at the shoot. And I don't think that guy is going to ask me that. So a few months later, I thought about it for a while. I emailed him back, and I was like, okay, I want to do this nude shoot now.
I forgot to tell you beforehand, but this is actually an erotic podcast.
So
we're gonna need something. No. So and then that was sort of your start, huh? You went from the creep to the I guess the more respectable, fashionable photographer, more legit, I suppose.
Yeah, he did it just as a side hobby. He just had a passion for photography. Like, I don't know if he was retired. He was really old, but he was nice. He had a nice high-rise apartment building that had a lot of natural light where he did a lot of his shoots. And I just felt comfortable because I didn't feel like he was hovering over me or like pressuring me to do anything. Like at the beginning of the shoot, his whole spiel was, if you ever feel uncomfortable, you know, I'll just give you a robe and you can go like take some time to like chill out, and if you ever want to stop, like we can stop or whatever. So I felt like I already had the freedom to say, okay, I'm not cool with this, and just having that introductory spiel was helpful for me, because the first guy that I worked with, it was the opposite. So he actually hired me every month for like 5 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Unusual. Yeah, like a muse.
Yeah.
Did you guys publish anything, or did he do anything with it?
He wanted to publish some stuff in, oh my god, what's that erotic nude website that's not Penthouse or whatever? Oh my gosh, why is it phasing me? MetArt.
Oh,
we submitted to MetArt.
Yeah. Well, I know it.
It's like high quality art, erotic
artistic.
news.
Yeah, it's artistic. I've been thinking about submitting. No.
Yeah, they only accept really good photography, and so. But MetArt also has a bunch of like partner websites that I learned about later that they kind of like spider web your images like all over the internet.
Oh wow.
They're good photos, so I'm like fine with that. But I didn't realize that was going to happen when I did the shoot. But I look back and I'm like, well, they're good photos, so I'm already naked all over the internet, so whatever.
So you had some interesting experiences. In 18 years, you've been modeling, and now here you are in our dining room. Obviously. Along the way, you started doing things that caught my attention anyway. When Sarah showed it to me, you started making these videos. Are they TikToks, or is that what it was? Or
yeah, it's like TikTok format, but I also share them as reels on Instagram.
Yeah, and they were videos about like where she would impersonate like creepy photographers.
Right. Yeah.
Know? And it's
pretty
hilarious.
accurate, a lot of it. Yeah.
Thanks.
What was the inspiration for that?
I've been modeling for a really long time, and honestly, like as I had been modeling for all of these years, I thought that I was going to quit when I turned 25, because in my mind, castings are like ages 18 to 25, but honestly when I was 25, that's when my traveling really got going, and I actually started like doing this full time. But after shooting with tons of photographers, especially in the beginning of my traveling career, like if you're flying to a city and you're like paying for like expenses on the road, like, and you don't have your name well known yet, you'll take any paid gig that you can get as long as they're not a serial killer. And so that was kind of how I started, and because of that I had a lot of experiences with weird people, not necessarily like dangerous people, but people who are like keeping their photography secret from their wife, and just really weird stuff, like photographers trying to like hide their boners in their pants and like not caring about the composition of the image, and like, you know, I just know, like,
right, it's obvious,
posing for it. And I've had so many of these, and I chat with my fellow model friends that, you know, we finally started pooling together in like Facebook groups and Instagram group chats, and when we talk in person, we share these stories, and to me they're just super hilarious, and I was like, I need to bring this hilarity to the outside world. And so that's why I was like, okay, for a long time I thought about making these funny videos, but I was like, oh, people are gonna not want to work with me anymore if they think that I'm just making fun of them all the time. But eventually just push came to shove, and I was like, you know what, like, I don't care if I don't get bookings anymore because people are offended, like, whatever. And so I started doing these funny videos because I just had to get it out of my system. It was in me and it needed to come out, and so I've made a bunch of them. I took some time off because I was going through a lot of last year with my mom's health and stuff, but I finally started doing them again by popular demand.
Have you done a hair brushing one?
No, I haven't.
You did a clothing adjustment one, I believe, right? Yeah.
I did a clothing adjustment one where the guy, and actually there's a specific photographer who's here in Dallas, actually, that I think I've done at least 2 or 3 videos based on his character. And for those of you listening, I'm not naming the photographers that these videos were inspired by. Like, I'm not calling people out. Like, nobody wants to get sued, right? It's all about being funny. Some of the things in the videos are just things that a lot of photographers have done. You know, apparently a lot of photographers think it's okay to like ask to rub baby oil on your ass. Like,
really?
Yeah,
I've had all
like,
kinds of things
let me
happen.
oil you
Anybody
up.
ever asked to rub baby oil on you?
Not baby oil, but other things.
Yeah.
That's nuts, man. You know, I'm a photographer. Maybe I should get some baby oil. I don't know. That's a common thing?
Yeah.
Even if I wanted to get that oiled up look, I wouldn't ask to rub it on you. I'd say, hey, can you put some of this on? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That would be my natural way of bridging that. And so clearly there's something else going on for these guys. I don't know. Yeah, she's talking about photographers hiding their boners, you know? Like,
Yep, I had it happen. I know somebody to the north of Dallas, the same kind of, yep.
I wonder if it's the same guy.
Photo shoots are, as a photographer, again, photo shoots are not necessarily erotic. Even though you're producing erotic art sometimes, it's not really, I don't know.
But I mean, who knows what's going through somebody's head? Maybe that's to them a power trip. Maybe, like you said, they're hiding it and that's their fantasy. You know, you don't know. I mean,
yes.
I was saying, just say, well, I can't believe I'm taking a picture of a naked girl. You know, that could be a thing. You know?
Yeah, all of that.
These videos though you make are hilarious. I mean, really do. In fact, I was afraid to meet Kristy because I don't want to end up in one of her videos.
Well, I'm glad we did, and we shot. And it was good.
We did a little photo shoot before the podcast. You mind if I drop a couple of those in the video here, just to show people, and increase the views?
Yeah, post them. Yeah, I don't care.
So you've made a career out of this. I mean, it was part-time, I guess, in the beginning, or maybe it wasn't part-time, but it was not enough to support yourself. But you've been supporting yourself as a model for quite some time. Right?
I did a lot of TFP, which for people listening that aren't familiar with the terminology, TFP is trade for photos or trade for prints or whatever, where you're just modeling for free, basically, in exchange for getting photos. For about 6 years, and I was doing some paid bookings, but I had a restaurant job at the same time. Eventually, in the beginning of 2012, I got fired from my restaurant job, and I was desperately trying to find another job. Like in the moment, like it didn't occur to me that I could just be a full-time model until I was like, without a job for a few months. For whatever reason, other restaurants that I was applying to weren't calling me back. I don't know. But I guess it was just meant to be. One of my roommates at the time was like, why don't you just try to book more photo shoots? And I was like, oh, I could probably figure out how to do that. And I did, and it worked. So
one other thing that I think is extremely interesting about you is our fan base knows that we lived on the road for 7, 8 years or however long it was, and you do that. You've been living on the road, living with the van life for how long have you been doing that?
I started van life in late 2019.
And so you're just traveling place to place doing modeling gigs, and then I know you book some of your own photo sessions, like you do some specialty bookings.
You do your own photo sessions too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of self-portraits.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting life. I realize. What made you decide to make the jump into living on the road like that?
Oh, so in 2019, I went through like a breakup that was a toxic relationship that I was stuck in for 7.5 years. And I was looking for other apartments in the area, but I couldn't find anything that I wanted. Like when you're a freelance nude model, it's kind of hard to get into an apartment because you don't have like W-2s, and usually they're asking you for your most recent W-2, right? Or like the regular application process is just not conducive to being a freelance nude model. It's like if I was a drug dealer, like
or anything artistic, quite frankly.
Especially if it's like a taboo industry. So I couldn't really find something that I wanted to live in where it was an apartment situation or whatever. And then I knew in my past I had been friends with a few people that did van life. So I just texted one of them and I was like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about van life. Like, should I do it? And the response was just, do it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So within 3 weeks, I had test drove like 3 or 4 vans, and like the third or fourth one that I test drove, I bought and I moved into like immediately.
How was that adjustment?
It was a very fast transition. I wasn't really mentally prepared for everything. Like, for example, I thought that I was going to be able to keep my car, but it was really apparent that I'm not going to have a parking spot for my car. Like, where am I going to put it? Like, I had a nice, like, 2017 Honda Civic. It was the first new car that I ever bought, and I had been making payments on it, and it was almost paid off. But I didn't want to get rid of it. I was thinking, oh, maybe I can just tow it behind the van. But like I've never towed anything like that before, and I don't want to damage it. I was thinking maybe I could just park it somewhere where nobody's going to go, and then have stuff in the trunk of the car, and then occasionally swap the van out for the car. But it just, nothing made sense. I didn't have like a family member that I could just leave my car at. So I was like, I have to sell my car. So the car thing was a big deal. And I was like, all right, this is it now. It's just me and the van. The van is now my main form of transportation and my home. And yeah, so I started basing trips around being in the van. And that's how I did van life for 2.5 years. And early in my van life process, I ended up with another boyfriend that I moved into the van with me. But he is really tall, and over time it was just damaging to his back. So we upgraded by the beginning of 2022 to get a bigger fifth wheel trailer with a truck, and that's what we do our traveling in now.
We never made it to the van life, to the RV
we
life.
looked into it quite a bit. And I don't know, our life had a different rhythm to it where we would...
Having a kid also affects that big time. I mean, not, you know, I mean, our kid loves being on the road, but it's, you know, it's an extra person, and it needs a little bit more privacy, or we need privacy from, you know.
Yeah, understandable.
You know, we were always in suitcases and from hotel to hotel.
Oh, you're doing hotel hopping.
Yeah.
I was about to ask, like, was it a camper? Or?
Yeah,
No, well, I mean, there was times where we would just be in our own car traveling for weeks or months at a time between gigs. As a matter of fact, when we went up to Alaska, it was really funny. We arrived and everybody's like, so, where's your RV? I'm like, right there, that's my Prius.
You did it in a Prius?
Yeah.
You can pack a lot in a Prius.
You can.
Wow.
They're surprisingly big and they're surprisingly zippy.
Good gas mileage.
Yeah. Oh, we were thankful for that too, because up there's places where it's so far and few between
I don't know
gas.
how much you do up north, but like, just driving up British Columbia is just like, you know, it's like it'll be 3 days before you see another gas station.
I'm not allowed in Canada, so.
Aww.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Canada, if you have a DUI, they won't allow you in the country.
Yeah.
They're stricter up there than we are.
Yeah, it's the only country that I had that problem with. And my DUI is from the United States also, but if you have a DUI, then Canada views you as a felon, because it's a felony in Canada.
Yeah, they have different rules. Yeah.
But other than Canada, have you done any shoots worldwide, or?
Yes, I have. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Turkey, Romania, Bali, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic. Where else have I been?
God, what a career. Like, seriously.
So, a lot of those places, Tahiti, a lot of those places have been destination shoots where I wanted to shoot underwater with a photographer that lived in the area. Like in the Bahamas, there's a few different underwater photographers. Like starting in about 2016, 2017, I became very fascinated with underwater modeling because I just wanted a challenge, and it was really challenging. It's like the hardest kind of modeling I can imagine. It's very cold. Yeah. You're swimming and posing at the same time, basically.
And you're trying to look relaxed, but you're not.
All of that is really hard to do, but I've kind of learned how to do it well, and so it's a super niche thing. But now that I have learned how to do that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to find underwater photographers where I can shoot with them without having to shoot in a pool. Which is a whole thing, because if you want to be in nature, you have to be with a photographer that lives in an area that has clear water, that does underwater photography, possibly even has to have a boat to get out into the ocean to do it and everything like that. So there's a lot of factors into the outdoor nude underwater modeling.
Wow. That sounds super cool.
We've come across some of that. We have friends who do a lot of body painting and underwater body painting, and they would work in pools and they have to drape everything because they don't want the pool per se, and I don't know if they use that, if they use any green screening, if that's even a possibility with that. But I always looked at that and on, it's like, oh my god, I can't imagine.
And then just the equipment from the photographer perspective too. Like I think it's cool that I can do a shoot with my GoPro underwater, you know. But
the quality is not.
Of course, it's a freaking GoPro.
Yeah.
And I've had underwater rigs for these cameras and stuff. But that's really really cool.
Yeah.
Would you say that's been your most challenging modeling so far? Or?
Definitely.
I kind of like the idea of the horrible stories. Well, because you started out was from such a horrible experience. It's impressive to me that you've gone so far. But like, what are some other like weird stories that you've encountered?
Oh my god, one just popped into my mind. No, this isn't necessarily horrible, but it was super awkward. And it's kind of a two-part story, but I'll try to tell it like, you know, in a condensed version. So this photographer wanted to shoot me in two different settings. One, he wanted to shoot glamour photos in a studio, but first he wanted to shoot something for his like fetish website that he said and claimed over and over again, it's not for me, it's for this website, and I'm able to hire you because I'm making these tickling fetish videos, and the tickling fetish videos help me pay for models to do glamour shoots with. And I'm like, whatever, I don't care, like I had done tickling stuff before. So he wanted to do this tickling shoot at a beach in Portland. So we get there and he has a shovel and a like ski jumpsuit. He starts digging a hole, and the whole idea was he was going to bury me in the sand except have my head sticking out and my feet sticking out. And the ski jumpsuit was so that I didn't get too much sand like all over my body, so it would be easier to like do the glamour shoot afterwards.
What a weird transition. I would go the other
Maybe
way.
glamour shot first, yeah, then bury
I
your
don't
model.
remember why. Maybe it was later in the day.
Were
that
you
we-
ever concerned that this guy was just gonna like kill you and bury you?
No. He had worked with other models that I knew in his portfolio, so I didn't think that he was going to murder me because the other models were still alive.
There's too many people that know where you're going.
So he does the tickling thing with me. He's tickling my feet, and he's got a camera pointing at my feet and a camera pointing at my face. And I can kind of tell that he was like into it, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so we finished that. He's like, all right, let's go to the studio. And you think it's weird enough already. It gets a little weirder for me. We get to the studio, and it's like, you know, a studio space that he rented or something like that. And I'm putting my bags down, and I start sorting out my outfits. And he's like, do you have any, like, actual clothes? And I'm like, these are my outfits. This is a glamour shoot. Like, so I usually bring, like...
Actual clothes?
I bring,
What's
like,
that mean?
lingerie and, like, fabrics, and that's the kind of stuff that I model in.
Right,
If he ever
yeah.
looked at my portfolio, he would see that I'm not, like, a fashion model. He's like, well, what about, like, clothing? And I'm like... I guess I can wear the outfit that I arrived in. He was like, okay, we'll start with that. But before we got to that point, I was like, I needed to change my shirt because I was wearing just like my jacket after the beach scene. I had just thrown my jacket on because I was cold and I didn't have my shirt on. So I was like, all right, whatever. He's like, okay, you can change down the hallway. There's a bathroom. The lights don't work because the power's out down there and the door's kind of glitchy. And I was like, I'm just going to change in here because I'm used to just changing in the studio.
Right.
Like, it doesn't bother me. And he's like, no, really, just use the dressing room. And I was like, dude, it's fine. So I start taking off my shirt and he freaks the fuck out.
Wow.
He started yelling. He was like, oh my god. And he like ran to the corner of the room opposite of me, turned around and put his nose in the corner of the wall, and he's shaking, like visibly shaking. He's like, I'm just gonna wait here until you put your clothes back on. And I was like, dude, like, are you okay? Like, I've been a nude model for like probably 8 years by that point, and I had never experienced anything like this before. And I was like, what's the problem? He was like, he doesn't shoot nudity apparently. He only photographs fully clothed models. And I was like, well, sorry,
Wait.
man, I didn't know you were gonna freak out,
This is
but
the same guy that took you down to the beach
Yes.
and covered you in sand
yes.
and then got off tickling your feet.
Yes.
That is crazy weird.
I know.
man.
So I was awkward. I was like, oh my god, I just freaked this guy out. Like that had never happened to me before.
To me, I would almost feel like, okay, your reaction was so strong with something so natural for me, that would make me want to head
I
for
know.
the door.
I was weirded out.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I don't like to label people crazy, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. You ever have an experience like that on a modeling gig?
Not like that.
It's
I've
a
had some
unique
pretty
one. That's
crazy
why.
stuff, yeah.
That's why it popped into my head to tell that story because I'm like, nobody's heard anything like this before.
Yeah.
This is gonna be weird.
I don't know. I guess most of your experiences have been pretty good. Right?
Yeah, I would say that 95 to 98% of people that I work with today are totally normal, not creepy. When I started modeling when I started traveling for modeling especially, I had a lot more like weird interactions because I wasn't really in a community of models that communicated with each other about who was predatory and who wasn't. I could just like look at their portfolio and maybe like message somebody that they had worked with and hope that they would respond. But
Right,
it wasn't
yeah.
until about 2015 on Facebook, there's these groups of traveling freelance models that had kind of created like chat rooms for each other to like, you know, check references that way in like a group setting online. And I got invited to one of those. So I had already been modeling from, you know, 2006 to 2015, kind of like lone wolf shooting in the dark. Yeah.
So did your videos help kind of sort that out, though, do you think, as well? Because
Yes.
I think if you have a reputation for I don't take any shit, you know, and I'm not going to show your portfolio on my portfolio because I don't want to keep promoting your work, I would think that would kind of weed some people out as well.
Yes, I have both gained new work with people who might not have like worked with me prior to doing that, and I've also lost work with people who are offended at the videos. But I'm not upset about losing that work
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
I still have a lot of people that enjoy working with me that I've already built up like repertoires with people from traveling for several years already that, you know, they're going to work with me across the country anyway. And then, I mean, I don't mean to like toot my own horn, but I've been posting photos on the internet of myself a lot for so many years that people have, you know, recognized my name and they know that I can pose well and that I have a reputation for showing up on time, which from what I've learned from photographers who photograph freelance models, showing up on time and showing up at all is almost more important than being
90% of
Follow
the
through.
professionalism, right?
Follow
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, showing up.
It's amazing how many models that I've interacted with who will like, I'll say, okay, let me, you know, what's your email address? And they like, don't give it, you know, they don't reply or they don't get back to you. Or then you put them in your calendar and then they don't show up. Or I mean, there's a lot of flake
We've
factor,
had things where
you know?
we booked Airbnbs to work with somebody,
Yeah.
and at last minute, they freaked out for unknown reason, like blocked us on Facebook
blocked
and
our-
social
you
media.
blocked
And we're
us,
like,
yeah.
I don't understand. We just spent all this money to shoot with you.
Like,
what happened?
You change
know?
your mind, just
Tell us.
So
Don't
we go.
ghost it.
Hashtag top reasons to only hire professional models.
You've got a really interesting story, and there's a couple of things in your background that you shared, but I didn't really follow up on, and so they're really stuck in my head. First of all, you're a high school dropout. I'm also a high school dropout. We're both dropouts. I think we both, maybe you'll agree with me in this, but I think we both have had careers that would be considered exceptional for a high school dropout. You know,
Yes.
and do you ever think to stop? Because this happens to me all the time. Where I think to myself, man, I like 20 years ago, I would have had no idea like this would be my life now. You know, is that kind of?
Oh yeah, totally. Like when the first photographer that ever worked with me, the first thing I said when he asked if I wanted to do a photo shoot with a real photographer was that, oh, I'm too short and I have these stretch marks. I'm 5'2", and when I went through puberty, I drew these like stretch marks on my hips and on my boobs. And I was watching America's Next Top Model, and I would always notice that they had to be 5'9". They had to have perfect skin, or at least it appeared that they had
Right,
perfect
yeah,
skin, like because they're on video in the TV show. And I had this idea of like what modeling was, and this is really before, like, I mean, not totally before social media. I think Facebook had started becoming a thing.
But even then, we all had magazines with our little teeny bop.
Yeah, so the magazines and TV shows really influenced me, and I was like, well, obviously I'm never gonna make the cut because I'm too short anyway, so that automatically ruins my ability to be a model. But it wasn't until late 2012, early 2013, something like that, I had been like trying to like do freelance bookings and figure out how to travel. And a photographer that I knew in Seattle told me that I should contact this other model who goes by the nickname of Floofy. Her name's Kira.
You spell floofy.
F-L-O-O-F-I-E.
Yes.
You really knew that? Do you
I
know
know
that
her,
model?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you know her.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, she's in Portland. She's super nice. He said,
Yeah, I'm gonna be there next month.
Shoot with
I'll
her.
work with Floofy.
Shoot with her.
She's great, yeah.
yeah. He said she's really short too. She's close to your height. You have a very similar look, and she's been doing this full time and traveling the world. And I was like, I have to meet her. So I saw that she was like co-organizing this art gallery that this mutual friend photographer that told me that I should meet her was hosting some of his art at in Portland. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna meet her there and make friends with her. And I did. I drove to Portland, and she was looking all cute in like a polka dot dress. I remember it very vividly, and I was like, "Hi, my name's Kristy. I'm a freelance model too, and I heard that you do this full time, and I would like to meet you and say hi." And she was so nice, and she said, "Yeah, if you're ever traveling to Portland for shoots, you can stay at my house, and you know, we can book shoots together because we have this similar look." And I picked her brain. I did. I came back to town and organized some shoots together, and she put together a studio day where we were both posing, and she was just so welcoming. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would be like doing this right now.
Oh wow! So you now organize your own shoots. Okay?
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, I've organized various amounts of shoots of different styles with different amounts of people throughout the years. In like 2012 to 2015, I put together big group shoots in Seattle for aspiring models to like get together with photographers and like just, you know, get some photos to start a portfolio, and that was fun. And in the last, you know, couple of years, especially since I've been van lifing and traveling a lot, I started organizing shoots where it's just me and one photographer at a time going to South Utah, and I take them from sunrise to sunset to all these locations in the middle of nowhere in South Utah that are really beautiful and epic. So that's currently like my favorite thing every spring and fall. But I also co-organize underwater destination trips with my friend Astrid, who's amazing. Astrid Carlson, if you haven't looked her up online, look her up. She's super majestic, beautiful, red hair, and she's also very amazing at underwater posing. We decided we wanted to put on events where we could have anywhere between 4 to 6 photographers hiring 2 to 3 models. We've kind of tossed up like, you know, 2 or 3, just depending on what's going on with us any given season. But we've done these underwater trips, some of them in the Florida Springs, where the water's very clear and beautiful, and you've got a lot of variety of sceneries underwater. And the cenotes in Mexico, close to Tulum, and that area has a lot of clear water and like underwater caves, like plants underwater, little fishes and stuff. And so they're both like really stunning locations with a lot of diversity for underwater photography.
I think you have a really fascinating career, and of course the you know, the internet is full of your images and videos and things. So there's a lot of you put a lot of yourself out there.
You mentioned your stretch marks, so I have to bring that to people's attention because Kristy not only makes fun of photographers, she is also about body acceptance, and she pointed out like she didn't realize she had to be, you know, these specifications, so she allows her I don't think they're flaws, just body as it is, and she makes fun of herself too. So for those of you who don't know, yes, we all use airbrushing and makeup and all those things to our benefit, but she'll call her stretch marks, her what do you call the tiger?
Tiger stripes.
The tiger stripes.
Yeah.
And her mosquito bites and things like that.
What
when
are
we get
mosquito bites?
zits and things
okay.
like that. I mean, I mean, it's normal and it's fun, and I love that you're humorous about yourself too. It's not just like you're out there getting the photographers.
That was actually a really big deal for me. For like about 10 years of my freelance modeling, I was really like concerned about the stretch marks. Even after I had been doing full-time modeling for several years, I would always request photographers to edit them out, and it was always like an extra step that not everybody wanted to do. But I thought that it would be unprofessional to share images where I had flaws. And over time, I think I was like sharing an image in a group of models where I had just done a trade shoot with a photographer whose work was really good, and he sent the images back to me, and he didn't edit out my tiger stripes. And I was like, how could you not edit those out? Aren't you a professional? Like, isn't that part of your process? And I sent this photo to this group on Facebook, the group that, you know, we shared contacts with each other. And one of the models was like, well, I think it looks kind of good. Like, they look cool. You know, I like the texture. Like, and I was like, maybe it does look cool. Like, maybe I shouldn't, like, you know, just raise a stink about it. And I was like, why does it have to be, like, shitty anyway? And I had a few art photographers in the past ask me, you know, do you want me to edit this out? Because I do share, like, scars and stuff if people are comfortable with showing those parts of themselves. And it has just been such a tension point for me for so many years. I was finally like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to show them. And I was so nervous the day that I made the first post where I was showing them, and like I had this whole paragraph where I was like, I'm really insecure about this. And I got such a positive reaction on the internet from other people that had them too, or like, you know, husbands of wives who saw that post would DM me saying my wife saw this and, you know, she knows that I follow like hot girls on the internet or whatever, but I showed her this and she was really inspired by it, and I was like, wow, I want to post about these more. And I think that was like in 2018, so was that about 6 years ago I started posting about my tiger stripes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, accept yourself. You know, accept your body. It's the only one you got. You know, I don't like it when people feel a great deal of shame or about their bodies or whatever it might be. You know, we all have fault. You know, we all have flaws and stuff. So another thing about your background, and again, you just threw this out there earlier without really following up on it, but you mentioned a really strict religious background, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my dad to this day is still like very, very, very Christian. I was raised in a kindergarten through 12th grade school that was also a church, and they were a Protestant Assemblies of God church/school. And they had policies that were so strict, like obviously their dress code was ridiculous. They didn't have uniforms. You could buy your own clothes, but your t-shirt had to be 3 inches over your shoulder.
Wow.
And your clothes couldn't be too baggy, and they couldn't be too tight. You couldn't wear flip-flops. You couldn't wear overalls. You couldn't wear sweatpants without pockets. They had a bunch of weird rules. And so they were very, very shaming on women and their bodies and you know, everything like that. Also, you couldn't have any dances at the school. They didn't have any school dances, no prom, no homecoming, because they believed that dancing was a sin because it promotes lust.
Oh man, it's like the school from Footloose.
I am the ultimate sinner, I will admit.
Yeah.
So you're going to hell for all that dancing.
Yeah.
Also, she wears lots of flip-flops.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
I lived in Florida, so.
So when I was like, 15, 16, I started to get like, sexual feelings, and I was like, oh my God, Satan is really trying to like drag me under right now. And I like stare at myself in the mirror and I'm like, well, I feel beautiful, but this is vanity if I'm staring in the mirror, and I was just like, I have this thing in me that I want to express, but even thinking about expressing it is a sin itself. So I had tons of like shame, and I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I was like stuck in this like bubble world that was really sheltered. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. I grew up in Seattle, and I didn't know who Nirvana was until
Wow,
I was
that's
16.
wild.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, so I was super sheltered, and I just knew that there was an outside world out there. So as soon as I turned 18, I got a tramp stamp. I started nude modeling. I got into my own apartment. I bought my own car, and I transferred the title into my name as soon as I turned 18. I got my own car insurance. I was like, fuck you, parents. Like, I'm an adult now. I can do what I want.
Adult.
In 18 years that they worked so hard on just washed out.
Yeah, they were definitely
I
upset.
think the true sign of adulthood is getting a tramp stamp. That's wild. So what role does religion have in your life now?
I'm definitely like atheist agnostic.
Yeah. It's a shame that such that kind of upbringing like drives people away. But it really does.
I do have friends that are Christian that are not like that like negative or extreme, and I respect that. Like I have a really close friend who's Christian, who's gay, and the church that they go to is welcoming and accepting and things like that. And I've worked with photographers who photograph nude models who are religious, and they say that they want to photograph the beauty of a woman nude because God created a nude woman's body and it's meant to be praised and celebrated. So I think that's cool, but I think it's interesting how like different types of Christians have like their own way of like translating what's sinful or good.
Well, I'm glad that you found this path. I mean, you definitely seem happy as a result, and you've traveled all over the world. You've shared lots of boners with photographers. Probably inspired a few from Instagram. I don't know. No, I think this is a great path. What's the future hold for you?
That's a good question. I do want to continue exploring. I have been exploring this certain area in South Utah, but I want to expand maybe to like New Mexico or the Sierra Nevadas. So I want to continue doing those destination type shoots. My favorite type of modeling is like stuff out in nature. I prefer to be out in nature. A lot of my income right now does come from me flying or driving to a major city area for a few days, which is what I'm doing here right now in Dallas, and then flying back to where I'm staying. But I just really want to do more exploration type stuff. And I know that I want to be a creative person my whole life, and maybe eventually in the future, like I'll write more books or like direct like, you know, movies or something like that. And I want to be a traveling model like indefinitely, but I don't necessarily want to be having it be my main source of income forever. But I also think that it's somewhat of an untapped market because, you know, I'm 36 right now. There's not very many full-time freelance nude models that are my age. There are a handful of us, but, you know, past 40, there's not very many at all. And I feel like it's because people think that they're not pretty enough because they've aged. And I have a whole thing where I don't want to get like, you know, face surgeries. I don't want to get like injections or Botox or fillers. I haven't even ever had a facial, but I would get a facial. I just haven't got one. But I don't want to do all these like addictive procedures that are expensive just to like try to look like I'm 25, because I'm not trying to trick people into thinking that I'm 25. Right. So I want to keep doing this, and perhaps I could be like, you know, a model that shows her age, that is willing to be on camera, just like I have the stretch marks, and I was willing to show those at some point.
Yeah, I think there's a market for every form of modeling. I really do. Yeah, so that's cool. That's great.
Thanks.
Regarding how can our followers find you? Obviously, you're on the internet a whole lot, but do you have specific sites that we want to plug?
Yeah, the best way that you could find everything of me is by going to KristyJessica.com. Kristy Jessica.com, and it has links to my TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, my erotic content, and you can see a documentary that I made like years ago and a book that I made. All of my links are at KristyJessica.com.
I like that she did erotic content in air quotes. That's not from the MySpace photographer.
No, I don't have contact with that guy anymore. But my Patreon and my OnlyFans is part of my income. So
yeah. So anybody watching this video or listening to this podcast, kick this model some money.
She's awesome.
She is pretty awesome, and she's an excellent model. I can only imagine that her content on OnlyFans and Patreon is worth paying for.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being on the podcast. Sarah, thank you for sitting in as my co-host.
Sure.
Yeah, I've missed you the last couple episodes. It's tough when we're not on the road together. I miss my co-host, Anyways, and you guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And this has been another episode of On the Road with Dr. Brian. Bye-bye.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and booze. I'm